A group of Durban Christian leaders have raised concerns about the hate speech bill. Now, they believe criminalizing preaching against homosexuality and immorality is problematic. The bill seeks to create the offences of hate crimes and hate speech and to put in place measures to prevent and combat these offences. The aim is to address the increasing number of racial incidents and to further address other types of criminal conduct motivated by bias, prejudice, or intolerance in the form of hate crimes and hate speech, which, as you know, have occurred in the recent past. The Ministerial Leaders for Christian Rights is an association made up of 100 church leaders. They believe that the prevention and combating of hate crimes and hate speech bill prejudice the church. The organization's spokesperson, Pastor Lazarus Pillay, said they expected more than 1 million signatures on a petition that they were submitting to the Ministry of Justice objecting to the bill. Joining us now in our studios in Durban is Pastor Lazarus Pillay, who is the spokesperson for the Ministerial Leaders for Christian Rights. A very good morning to you, Pastor, and welcome.
Good morning, President, and good morning to the viewers.
Now, Pastor Lazarus, as the church, what is it that you are opposing about the prevention and combating of hate crimes and hate speech bill?
Well, President, the situation is that the draft bill that is presented right now is being opposed by our organization, who represents the broader fraternity of churches, predominantly in the KZN region, purely because this draft bill is broad in its nature and, as you rightly said, is to preserve the rights of the South Africans, but in the same token, we believe that it's contentious in its nature, because in the same token, as the said constitution that protects the rights for spiritual freedom, rights and the rights of speech, in the same token we find that the same sections 15, 16 and 31 that preserves the rights for the freedom of religion especially is not basically protected in this draft bill. So we find it contentious, and therefore we're calling on the government to consult with the church rather than the bill's findings as being presented at the moment.
Pastor, why do you believe, though, that criminalizing preaching against homosexuality and immorality is problematic? And if so, why?
Well, Mr. President, for years the church has always been supportive and has been the main organ that assisted government and assisted communities for the building of the moral fiber of the country. For years and generations, it has used the Bible as its constitutional book to drive that message across, and hence we have morally uplifted communities. And therefore we find for years that this has been a contributor for the upliftment of social and moral fiber of society. In the same token, we find that the broad spectrum of this bill, and in retrospect to Section 3 and Section 4 of the draft bill, we feel is very broad. So as much as it is speaking to this particular to the situations arising in the country, but in the same token, we believe that the same organs of the church and organizations that have built the moral fiber, in the same token, should be looked and consulted with to see how the church could also be protected in the same way.
How would you like to see, or what would you like to see happen with this bill?
We'd like to firstly see that the fact that the draft bill has been dictated to, in the sense that it had a time frame, and this time frame was given to the communities to respond by no later than the 31st of January. So therefore it didn't give much time for the broader church to communicate with its constituents. But in the same token, therefore, we had to put together an urgent petition calling for government to relook at this bill. So therefore, in essence, we're asking for a consultative approach. And in the same token, as much as the church would like to support any hate or any act of crime that is being incited, in the same token, it should be preserving the church as well to not see as a contributor to hate crimes and hate speech, but more as an uplifter of communities and protector in communities as well. So in the same token, as much as it is speaking against the immorality, and it's a broad sense of the immorality, in the same token, it also embraces the person who is a victim of such immorality.
Some would say that the church should be preaching the message of love, unity and peace instead of sowing divisions. What's your reaction to that, instead of opposing a bill which is trying to bring people together and make sure that they don't abuse each other?
Well, I don't think the church is contributing in that way at all. The church is very supportive in the lifting of the oppressed, and therefore it is not sowing seeds of contention, neither is it intending to sow any seeds of division or hate. All it's saying that if this bill is not being looked at in its merit, then there might be a broad understanding and interpretation, and that's what we're concerned about. We're concerned about the broad interpretation because the bill in section 6 calls for punitive measures and very harsh punitive measures. So if the church is not being protected against this at the moment, the broad sense of anything goes in community might be calling it to be more of having the courts inundated with applications and having communities more discorded and more divided. And that's what we're saying, that this kind of bill will cause more contentions in communities, will cause more divides in communities. And I don't see the bill is going to basically help. And therefore, we're not saying that at the end of the day that we should not look at contributing measures that does impact on hate crime and speech. But we're saying if it's left broadly, the church will not be looked as more embracing and uplifting. And therefore we find that many people who are exposed with this kind of prejudices do come to the church for love, and they do come to the church for an embrace, and they do come to the church for an upliftment, and the church has been doing that for years. And we're saying let the church continue to do what it was doing, and obviously within the law and within the support of the Constitution. And we're saying that this draft bill is not impacting on the directness. It's too broad, and we're calling for a consultative measure.
Now, you're busy with a petition. How many signatures have you got thus far that you want to submit to the Ministry of Justice?
We have hundreds of thousands of signatures already. We have been inundated on social platforms. We have been inundating communications throughout the country, through various forums using all different modes of communication. And we are very, very optimistic that there are millions of signatures that will be attested. And I'm getting major reports from throughout the country, many people calling for the petition. And the petition is basically going to communicate to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to relook at its model, to relook at its approach, and to consult with the broader public. And we're not only just talking the church, President, we're also talking about all organs and organizations that have the common cause to lift up the moral fiber. And that speaks to religions across the country and organizations across the country as well. But in particular, we are representing the church because we feel that it's impacting negatively, and it is impacting with an interpreted prejudice that could find punitive action against its practitioners. And we feel that if we don't protect the church and have this consultation with government and let be, this could become very, very serious. And in fact, it causes more problems for the country and the judiciary, yes, and its organs of investigation mechanisms, such as the various Chapter 9 institutions will find themselves inundated with unnecessary kinds of actions.
Just briefly, Pastor, in 15 seconds, have you got any recommendations for the ministry?
Yes, we recommend that the ministry consults with the church as its whole, the broader church, and we are strongly represented in the country from all corners of the city and the country. And we believe that call for a consultative measure, call for more of an approach that we could give government some form of assistance, and also to help them understand how to roll out this kind of need for legislation. We strongly believe there's a need for legislation of this nature because we feel that there's a very broad spectrum of injury to communities, and we're asking that we believe the church could become very supportive to government's cause rather than becoming oppressive.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you so much for your time joining us in our Durban studios. That was Pastor Lazarus Pillay, who's the spokesperson for the Ministerial Leaders for Christian Rights in our Durban studios. We'll take